All right, so we're diving into a side of Boston you don't see on those cheesy duck boat tours, folks. Forget the Freedom Trail. We're talking about the underbelly of the legal system with a true crime story that'll make you rethink those charming cobblestone streets.
It's a wild one.
It really is, and it all goes down in Dorchester, a neighborhood that's seen its share of drama. And we're getting this story straight from the source, a proposed podcast called Boston True Crime. Have you heard of it?
I haven't. Tell me more.
Well, it caught our attention because it digs deep into a case that really highlights the complexities of the justice system. And believe me, nothing about this case is straightforward. It all starts with a guy named John Doe.
John Doe. Okay. What'd he do?
Well, he found himself on the wrong side of the law, again, facing a firearm possession charge. Now, this wasn't his first rodeo.
Uh-oh. So he's a repeat offender.
Yeah, and that's where things get messy, because we're not talking about a slap on the wrist here. This second offense carried a potential 5-year sentence. Imagine the weight of that hanging over your head.
Oh, absolutely. That's a completely different ballgame. And legally speaking, a second subsequent offense is no joke. It ramps up the pressure on everyone involved.
You're telling me. And with that much on the line, Doe needed a legal bulldog, someone who could navigate the system. Enter attorney Veronica J White. She had a reputation, see, a real courtroom warrior. And get this, she actually got Doe acquitted in a previous case.
Wow, so she's already familiar with John Doe and the players involved. That history probably came in handy for both of them.
Oh, absolutely, especially since the prosecution tried to pull a fast one. They delayed the indictment, maybe thinking they could catch her off guard. But attorney White, she's sharp as a tack.
What did she do?
She flipped the script. She argued that the delay itself was grounds for reducing the charges to a first offense. Talk about using their own game against them.
Now, that's what I call a shrewd defense strategy. And it makes you wonder, did the prosecution miscalculate or did they underestimate attorney White? Either way, it's a brilliant move on her part.
Totally. But that wasn't her only power move. She wasn't done yet. She filed a series of those discovery motions, which, let's break it down for our listeners, means she's demanding to see the prosecution's evidence.
Right, because everyone's entitled to a fair trial, and that includes knowing what evidence is being used against them.
Exactly. It's all about transparency, right?
Yeah.
So you'd think the prosecution would just hand it over, case closed, right, wrong.
Wait, are you serious? They refused.
They dragged their feet, and then some. They flat out failed to provide the evidence.
Whoa, that's unheard of. That's a blatant disregard for procedure. The judge must have been furious.
You can say that again. The judge ordered them to produce the evidence, and they still didn't budge.
So we're talking about a serious breach here, a violation of John Doe's right to a fair trial.
It's like they shot themselves in the foot. And you know, attorney White, she seized that opportunity. She passionately argued that the only fair solution was to dismiss the case entirely.
And what did the judge say? I mean, this is huge.
The judge agreed. Just like that, case dismissed. Talk about a victory for due process.
It really makes you wonder about the bigger picture here. I mean, if John Doe didn't have such a skilled, determined attorney, would he be looking at years behind bars right now? This wasn't just a win for John Doe. It exposed some serious cracks in the system.
And it makes you think twice about those innocent until proven guilty slogans, doesn't it? I mean, this case highlights how crucial a strong defense is and how easily the scales of justice can be tipped.
Absolutely. John Doe walked free, but this case leaves us with some unsettling questions about the system itself. How often are these oversights happening, and what does it mean for justice in Boston? And more importantly, what happens to those who don't have a Veronica J White fighting for them?
It's a sobering thought. And it shows that behind the historical landmarks and charming facades, there's a whole other side of Boston, a world of crime, justice, and the fight for fairness.
The names and certain details in this podcast have been changed to protect the privacy of the individuals involved. While the cases presented are based upon real events, certain facts may have been altered or omitted for confidentiality purposes. Each case is inspired by real legal cases defended by White & Associates PC. This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. White & Associates PC does not endorse or guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the information discussed in this episode.